This video is about using the properties of perpendicular lines to find the missing value. So, if two lines are intersecting, form a linear pair of congruent angles, then the lines are perpendicular. This should make sense because if I'm forming a straight line of 180 degrees and I have congruent angles, the only ways that they're congruent is if they're both 90 degrees, because that's what would add up to 180. So the conclusion we can make then is that R is perpendicular to S. In a plane, if a transversal is perpendicular to one of the two parallel lines, then it is perpendicular to the other. So in this image over here, we have our transversal Q, which is perpendicular to N, and because N and R are parallel, it must also be perpendicular to R. So we could also say that Q is perpendicular to R. If two coplanar lines are perpendicular to the same line, then they are parallel to each other. So in this case, N is perpendicular to S, R is perpendicular to S, so we can make the conclusion that R and N are parallel. So let's use this idea to solve for variables. So in number one, we have two congruent angles, which means that C must be perpendicular to D, which means both angles are 90 degrees. So to solve for x, we're going to have 12x plus 6 is equal to 90. So we're going to subtract 6 from both sides. 12x is equal to 84, and when I divide by 12, I get x is 7. We're going to do the same thing for y. So 7y minus 22 is equal to 90. We're going to add 22 to both sides, so 7y equals 112. And when I divide by 7, I get y is 16. In number 2, it tells us that f is perpendicular to g, which means all of these are right angles because perpendicular lines form right angles. So to solve for x, we're going to have 14x plus 6 is equal to 90. We can subtract 6 from both sides, so 14x equals 84. And when I divide by 84, I get I get 6. In the second one, we have y squared plus y is equal to 90. Now remember, if there's a y squared, we're going to have to factor. So we're going to subtract 90 from both sides. Y squared plus y minus 90 equals 0. So what multiplies to negative 90 and adds to 1 since it's a plus y? So we have y plus 10 and y minus 9 equals 0. So when I solve, I get y is negative 10 and y is 9. Now, both of those solutions work because if I substitute back in, I'll get 90, so y is going to equal two different values. Number 3, we have this right angle here, which means that P is perpendicular to R, which means that Q, because those lines are parallel, is also perpendicular, which means all of our angles are going to be 90 degrees in this figure. So we have 11x minus 9 equals 90. So I can add 9 to both sides. 11x equals 99. Divide by 11, and x is 9. We also have 8y minus 6 equals 90. We can add 6 to both sides, so 8y equals 96. And when we divide by 8, we get that y is equal to 12. In number 4, we have the same thing with our picture just turned. So because there's a right angle here, all of those angles are right angles. And because A and B are parallel, all of these are also right angles. So we have 2x plus 68 equals 90. We can subtract 68 from both sides and get that 2x is equal to 22. When we divide, x equals 11. On the other part of our problem, we have 6x plus 4y equals 90. We already know that x is 11, so 6 times 11 is 66, plus 4y equals 90. We can subtract 66 from both sides, so 4y equals 24. We divide, we get y is 6. Number 5, again, the same idea. So we have perpendicular lines with R and Q, which means we have right angles here. And because P is parallel to R, those are also right angles. So we have x plus 6y equals 90, and we have 8x plus 3y equals 90. So I'm going to use elimination to solve. So I want to eliminate my y, so I'm going to multiply the second equation by -2. X plus 6y equals 90. Negative 16x minus 6y equals negative 180. So I get negative 15x equals negative 90. And when I divide, I get x is 6. Once I know x is 6, I need to go back and substitute. So I'm going to substitute into the first equation. 6 plus 6y equals 90. When I subtract 6 from both sides, I get 84. And when I divide by 6, y is equal to 14. So the ordered pair here would be 6, 14.